Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining. I am very excited to be here with Hans Decoz, who is joining us from Houston, Texas. And Hans is a leading numerologist and has been studying numerology for 54 years and is proficient in 4 different languages. Hans is also the author of Numerology, The Key to Your Inner Self. And a lot of numerologists, I know also a lot of people who do have that book. So I will link the book below, as well as What Life Is. And we're going to touch on that at the very end of this session, and A Fish Made of Water. So I will reference all of those books below. And as an author, numerologist, and a techie, Hans has already also created the first digital numerology report program that is available through the World Numerology website, which is a website I know very well. And this is actually how I met Hans, was because I studied numerology, started 3 years ago through the World Numerology website. And I always use that website as a reference to send people for information about numerology. I just find it very informational. I find that there's so much depth to the work there, and I've really gotten to enjoy Hans's take and his insight and wisdom with numerology, of course. So thank you so much for being here, and I'm really looking forward to learning more even about numerology and your story.
Hi, Tara. Well, thank you for having me. So numerology has been the focus of my life for a very long time. It didn't happen planned. I don't think anybody plans to become a numerologist, but you encounter something and it catches you. And that's what happened to me. I liked math. I specifically liked the logic and the patterns that math shows. And so one day I bought a couple of math books and came home, and one of them was about numerology, and I had no idea what that was. So I think I was about 19 or 20 at the time, and I was very skeptical, but I started playing around with it and studied it pretty seriously after a while. And I noticed that I'll be the first to admit that it's an inexact science, but there were definitely indicators that there was truth to that it had actual value. And so I just kept going. I must have read over 100 numerology books. I have a lot of numerology books back there, and that I still have. And started practicing on friends and people, and it just grew more and more. And what I like about numerology, what really kept me going with it, is that it's not just about analyzing somebody's personality or predicting the future to some extent. It really, it shows life. It's about patterns, and we all know patterns. We live with patterns. We grow with patterns. So that's what got me hooked. And then it just one thing after another happened. I came to the United States. I ended up working as a house psychic in a kind of a Las Vegas style nightclub for years, which was excellent training ground. I can, anyone who is interested in learning numerology, my advice is to get in a situation where you can, do a lot of people very quickly, like 10, 20 minutes, because it teaches you to focus right away on what matters and what really stands out about that person. So that just kept growing. And then I did a lot of, personal consultations, full hour consultations. And that's basically how it happened. I would say that I've probably read in-depth readings, maybe 1,000 people, maybe 2,000 people. I have no idea, but a lot. And the thing that I notice about people and what they get out of these readings, it's not so much whether or not what you're saying is true. Obviously, you want it to be, but the main thing is that it makes people think. It it inspires self-reflection. And I don't think that there is a human trait that is more valuable than self-reflection. So, I mean, even if somebody tells you something about you that you know is not true, it still makes you think, you know?
Mhm.
So, does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. And I remember listening to one of your audios on your website, and you were talking about it could be the life path numbers even, and how people with certain life path numbers have a certain swagger or walk or demeanor or hold how they hold their posture or how they talk and present to the world. And those cues are so valuable and show and display so much about our character that can be discovered through numerology, which I found so interesting. And just the ability to really go into these details of someone's story and personality. And as yourself, a reader, you're also an observer and you can really get a lot of information. And I'm sure after a certain amount of time, when you're becoming a master numerologist, you probably don't even really need to go into a lot of the charts. You probably just pick up a lot of information from them intuitively based on their story or based on themselves, right? I would imagine.
Sure. Yeah, actually, I think that there's a kind of a breakthrough point for a lot of people in a lot of different careers, actually. I mean, this happens with artists, this happens with poets, with writers, and it happens with people like me, numerologists, where you initially learn, you learn what this number means, what it's in this particular position in the chart, which is one of the things that a lot of people underestimate. It's all about the position in the chart. There's a huge difference between a 7 life path and a 7 hearts desire or a 7 personality. Those are not the same. But the main thing is that at some so you learn all the attributes of each number in each position in the chart, and you apply it as you do your job, do your work. But there comes a point where they take on their own personality. You no longer have to remember or think about attributes of a number. When you feel it, when you see it, everything you need to express to that client based on that number, it's just there. I mean, yeah, I remember very well. It wasn't a one moment thing, but it was definitely a specific time in my life when I realized that my practice of numerology had taken on different. It just became different. It became fluid. It became
Evolved. And, yeah.
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 And I don't know how long. I think it differs from one person to another. My advice for people who like to learn numerology is to just go at it and try it and be open to negative feedback from the person you're talking to, because that's what's going to teach you.
Mhm.
But just do it and be sensitive, be intuitive. You can't be a good numerologist if you don't also have a good sense of people's facial expressions, body language, tone of their voice, everything. It all plays. It's all part of it.
And
So
so if anybody's watching this video or tuning into the podcast and you don't know numerology, what is numerology and why do people need to explore it? And where can they find value in this practice?
yeah, so numerology obviously it's in the same field as astrology and tarot. It's an old science, and it's based on the patterns that we find, that we recognize in the numbers in your date of birth and the letters in your name. It supposedly goes back 5,000 years. It could go back 10,000 years. It's just that nobody really knows. It just evolved. But there is a form of numerology in pretty much every culture. You go to India, they have their form of numerology. Middle East, very powerful in that. Obviously, you find mentions of it in the Bible. Jewish people, the Kabbalah. It's all, you find different forms of numerology in a lot of places. So if you don't know anything about it, the way to look at it is that the things around you and the things inside of you and the things you experience are not just a random collection of events and things. It's all connected. Everything is connected. And some of it, makes perfect sense. I mean, you go outside in cold weather, don't wear a coat, you end up with a cold. These are obvious connections that everybody recognizes, but there are connections on a much deeper level. Literally everything is connected. So the fact that your name reflects things about you that on the surface might not make sense, like, wow, isn't that an accident? I mean, my parents were going to call me this, but then they ended up calling me that. So that's total coincidence. No, it's not a coincidence. It's never a coincidence. Mm-hmm. It's all linked. And your parents' intuitive connection with you before you were even born already kind of created the name. One of the ways that you can really recognize these underlying connections is, for example, when you read novels, authors have a really good connection with names. Their characters almost always, if it's a romance novel, it's one kind of name. If it's a detective novel, it's going to be a strong name. I mean, they have that connection because, they dig into their story and it goes on and on in their head, and their intuition comes up with a name that fits that character perfectly. Another way to look at it is in the evolution of our language. The evolution is in sync with the people that grow in that language. So I'm gonna, the first time, these two guys are crossing, the forest, and one of them sees a bear. There's no language yet, but then they make some kind of growling sound, and they point at their buddy, hey, run, there's a bear. And then so the sound of words in our language really reflects their meaning. You'll be, as a kind of an exercise, you could look at how many words that in the English language represent some kind of protection or comfort for human beings that have the first vowel an O. Home. I mean, house. Just, everywhere, all the roof. Just look for them and you'll find it. So these connections, these underlying connections, things that's what numerology is about. Numerology is a method of digging into these connections and following traces and finding answers or clarity where you might not have been able to find clarity otherwise. So, and like I said before, I mean, there's nothing more rewarding than self-reflection. Mm-hmm. So any study that focuses on finding connections between you and maybe your personality or your future or the environment you live in, it's great. Like not that long ago, it's a good example. This person was really not doing good, and in part, a young person, because he was unable to keep a job, And his parents were on his case. Everybody was on his case. He was on his own case. So I looked at his chart, and he's got fives all over the place. There's, that's a very dynamic number. You cannot put a 5 in a routine job. It's not going to last. They're going to explode. They're going to go away. When he found out that his personality, which basically is what I did, I told him, here's your chart. Your personality, it's dynamic. It's restless. You should not have a routine job. You need to go and look around and find a job that gives you the kind of change and adventurism even that you can hang on to it. And it just made his day. It was all he needed to know, to find, comfort in the fact that you are who you are. And if you can find out through numerology or tarot or astrology that your traits suit you, then that's very, it's comforting.
Yeah, and I do remember when I first came across numerology, this was maybe 5 years ago or so, and I was going through a really difficult time. And I'm a life path 9, and I actually have an app that I downloaded on my Android phone. I think it's only available on Android, but just reading the information was so valuable for that time in my life. It just put things into context. It allowed me to have clarity with what was going on within myself. And sounds very similar to the person you mentioned as well. If we don't know some of the energies that we have within us, or even personality traits that are buried deep within, and we're not honoring it, but we don't know exactly what it is, then yeah, we're going to have a difficult time. We're not going to feel in alignment. We're going to not understand how to honor what's important for us, or to at least put ourselves on track for something that is going to flow with us better. So it was very, very powerful for me. And that started a lot of numerology. I was getting a lot of people interested in it because I was very passionate about it at that time. I still am. Numerology is my number one. I'm sure maybe most people who will be watching my YouTube channel know my tarot channel. I do tarot readings for life path numbers, and there's a loyal audience there for the life paths, and they love it. And I feel the energy too is quite different compared to the zodiac readings. I actually find that the life path numbers have a little bit more of depth to them, or a little bit more flavor to the readings. So anyway, that's just my experience with it. But I'd like to go back a little bit in time just shortly and talk about some of your experiences, because you've been doing this for a long time. I know you've had a lot of life experiences, a lot of travels. I'm sure you've met some very interesting people. Maybe share one story that stood out or stands out from your experience in the past as a really interesting memory of your journey of learning and discovery.
Yeah, well, I would say that so when I was 19 and just basically discovered numerology and played around with it, at the time I was going to art school and was going to be an artist. And I had a fairly promising, career in front of me, so to speak. And but I can't remember how long, but I would say since I was a child, I just could not understand why people can, or how we can just live and not just be flabbergasted every moment of the day. That because this is amazing. This whole living experience, this whole experience of walking around and breathing and seeing all this is amazing. So that was a question that ruled my life. And when I was 21, I thought, well, maybe the answer is in the East. So I gave up my wonderful career and I hitchhiked in the middle of the winter from Amsterdam to Istanbul, and then through Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, into India, looking for gurus, looking for teachers. It was and I realized fairly early on, I spent quite a bit of time in India at the time, and that, gurus and sadhus, I love them. I just love them. But they aren't that different from your basic, priest or pastor or something. I mean, all they got is words, beautiful words sometimes, but all they got is words. And it wasn't enough for me. I needed something that was more real. And so, yeah, I met someone who, a boy, really, he was 13, but he was known for for being able to show people, bring them inside in a way that, nobody else, I think, could really do that I knew of. So I went for that. I was initiated in that. And that's the, I basically, I have my birthday because that's the day I was born. And then I have this other day because that's the day that, for me, and that was literally 1971. And I have practiced that meditation daily ever since. And my life, I don't even want to think about what my life would have been like without it. So, and in a way, it links to numerology in a funny way, because like I said earlier, I've always liked math. I've always liked the logic and just the simplicity of it. I'm not a mathematician, but I look at numbers and I just love the way, I mean, like the number one, it's like when you ask anybody what's your favorite number, like I would say 7. I've always loved the 7. And somebody may say 8.
Non-biased, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Your
But
life path 7. That's why I was saying.
Oh, okay. You didn't have to, okay.
I
That's
like
what
7
we
too,
call it.
I like 9 as well.
But really, the number one is one you can really, take a good look at, because if you look at this universe, this creation, this everything that exists, including you, you can give everything a number. I mean, it would be an unlimited, almost infinite number of numbers. I mean, huge, all numbers. But every one of those numbers is nothing more than that many times 1.
Mm.
So if you're thinking about what is the essence of life, what is the essence of this creation, then you would basically, if you like numbers, you would have to say it's 1.
Hmm.
Some people will say, no, it's 0. Well, you can multiply 0 with 1,000,000,000, you still got 0. So I like to call it 1. And here's a funny thing about this combination. This is 2023. For the last 30, 40 years, our world has turned into a digital world. And it's more and more and more and more and more so. So our world these days exists really of zeros and ones. Mm-hmm. So I just like to see the connections.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like the 9 for that reason too, like how you can multiply and add and it all reverts. So what about the 369 combination, this Tesla 369? That's really, a lot of people are talking about, a lot of buzz, even meditation techniques or manifestation techniques that people talk about using the 369 model. And Tesla was very religious almost about these numbers being together and having them in his life in many different ways.
Right. So yeah, I never met Tesla, so there's that. I don't really know. Okay, so that's kind of a joke. But here's the thing: if you look at it from a numerology perspective, 3, 6, and 9, all numbers divisible by 3 are creative. The combination of 3, 6, and 9 basically packs in all the creativity you can possibly have. So I always thought that that's what he was talking about. The ultimate creator. I mean, I wish he'd written some more explicit material on that subject, but he didn't.
I think there's some mathematical formula together that it's an infinite, expansive formula that when you calculate them together, and I don't really know it myself, but there's something else I think there with the calculation of them, but I'm not a mathematician. It would be over my head personally.
Well,
But the 369, those are the most harmonious numbers, aren't they, in
right.
numerology, right? The combination of them.
Yeah. So, yeah, they're the most loving in a way, in different ways. Like the 3, 6, and 9, they're all three creative, but also in different ways. The 3 is basically just playful, just creative. Whatever pops up, it's going to do it. The 6 is more visual, and the 9 combines colors and materials. So all three have a different way of being creative. They also, the 3, one is the, this not everybody likes this, but okay, so 1 is the male, 2 is the female,
Mhm.
3 is the child,
Right. Hmm.
right? So that's, I mean, what is more creative than a child? I mean, you don't have to do anything for them, just let them go and they'll be creating something. But that's also our nature, and before they started training you in different ways, and you end up being an accountant. Originally, you were just a creative little child. The 6 is the most loving in small community family environments. It's the ultimate mother, the mother number, the father. That's the 6, and the 9 is the global consciousness, the awareness that we are one, basically on a global level. The 9. No prejudice, always open to foreign cultures, wants to travel, wants to reach out. It's like an octopus number, wants to go everywhere, because it wants to reach everything. It wants to protect people in foreign countries. I sometimes call it the Mother Teresa number. You can give it different nicknames. So I don't know what Tesla was really referring to, and I definitely don't know anything about that mathematical equation or whatever it is that's behind that. But from a numerology perspective, if you would want to point at a combination of numbers that have a very powerful effect, 3, 6, and 9 would be it. Because of that creativity, love, It doesn't mean that all the other numbers don't have that.
No, of course, of course. And what
So
about the
1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8. Don't feel bad.
No, they're all powerful in their own right. They all have their own magic, right? And what about the angel numbers or the repeating numbers that so many people are seeing now, these 111s and 5s, 55, 511, 911. What
Yeah,
happens? What do you think is happening? Now it's happening more and more. It's probably because consciousness is increasing and raising, and our vibrational matches are aligning in some kind of way, I feel.
right.
But what's your take on it?
They're relatively new. I'm an old timer.
Okay.
My numerology studies go back 40, 50 years,
Mm.
basically, when I laid the groundwork for to become a numerologist. And back then, I don't remember a single book talking about angel numbers, which doesn't mean there wasn't one. I have only about
I don't know if
120
they're
books.
really called angel. Some call them angel numbers. I just see them as
They were
patterns when I see them.
all multiple digit numbers have a meaning, and there are. So if you consider that a number is a personality, it's a very defined personality. Like the 7 is the seeker, the intellectual, the loner, all that. It's just the analyst, no chit chat kind of person. You have this specific personality. Now you put 3 of them together in one room. Okay, so this multiplies the effort. So we do look at we have single digit numbers, which are basically the clean, clear energy of a single digit number. Okay, that's it. That's the personality. Okay, then we have our master numbers, 11, 22, and 33, because they have a specific power with them. And they're called master numbers because, 1, they're hard to master, and 2, if you do, they have more potential than other numbers. But they have master number status because of what they are. The 11 is two ones and a 2 value. The 22 is two twos with a 4 value. And the 33 is two threes with a 6 value. So those are the mass numbers. And then we have power numbers, because anytime you put two digits together that are identical, it increases so you also have the 44, 55s. Those we call power numbers. And then one day, I don't remember when, 25 years ago or something, I remember reading something about angel numbers. I thought, oh, well, that's a new one. Never heard of that. But it kind of makes sense. I don't care about the name angel numbers. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of anything. But that's just my personality. Nobody has to care about that. But like you said, we are evolving, and we are recognizing things that we previously maybe not were, at least not, maybe there were individuals who were aware of it, but now it's almost, like it's multiple people at the same time entering, into some knowledge or recognition or intuitive understanding of things that we didn't have before. So I'm wide open to it, but that's not my specialty. I think if you want to know the actual meaning and value of angel numbers, there are people who are probably better equipped to let you know that. But we've always looked at combinations of numbers in that view, like the fact that some people see repeated numbers on a regular basis. That's not a new one. That was recognized eons ago, and that has a meaning. But the meaning is always tied to the person. It's not always the same meaning for everybody. And when a number like that comes into your life, if you like numbers and you like numerology and you want to analyze it a little bit, go for it, because there's almost certainly some kind of message there, something you can benefit from, some knowledge you can gain from looking at that number. And like I have said earlier, it doesn't even really matter, as long as you practice the art of self-reflection. Mm-hmm. You're going to grow, mm-hmm. and your life will improve.
Yeah. Let's go into a prediction for 2023. Now, I caught your email from World Numerology about the upcoming year. Do you want to go into a little bit of a prediction of the next? Do you want to do 2023, 2024, what you see coming up, just as a broad feeling or inkling? Or
the problem with yearly predictions on a global basis is that things move slowly. Mm-hmm. So you can definitely predict a wave of some kind when it comes around. I was back in 2019. I wrote my yearly prediction, and I called it, let me see if I got this right, Atlas Tripped or something, because it was showing that there would be a global, like chaotic, out of control thing. And, 2 months later, COVID hit us. But I like to look at it on a larger scale. Like, I like the fact that after 2000, everybody born has a 2
yes.
in their date.
Yes.
This is extremely. This is not.
2020s is going to be really nice.
Yeah, and now these people, anybody under the age of 23, anybody born before, after January 1, 2000, has a 2 in their date of birth that replaces a 1 that everybody had before that. And the 1 and the 2 are each other's opposites. The 1 is the warrior. The one is in your face, stubborn, individual. It's the masculine number. The 2 is feminine, is sensitive, diplomatic, tactful. Likes to keep the peace. And is very good at making that happen. And so now all these people, 23 years or younger, have that extra little dose of 2 in there. That's where my hope is. for the future.
I know. And
That's why.
yeah, and I've
Yeah,
seen little children, just on social media, videos and things that are being published. And I don't know if I mean, I'm maybe because I don't know if I caught that from you, if you said that or where I caught that from, but it really did stick. And maybe I'm just now being more observant about younger people's behaviors and how sensitive and compassionate and caring they are. And it's really endearing to see this. And so I believe it. I do believe there's going to be more of that compassionate energy, healing energy, diplomatic, understanding, sensitive to world affairs and people. And yeah, definitely. I
yeah.
feel that.
I know it's dangerous to say something like, I see these kids in my neighborhood and blah, 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 because that's just a small group of kids. But
Yeah.
because of my friends, I actually have know a fair number of people who are in their 20s, and I'm telling you, I mean, they're way better than I was in my 20s, or my friends. They're nowhere near as competitive with each other. They're very supportive of each other. That's the main thing. That's really the main thing. And I've always said that every generation is an improvement on the previous one, and I'm not the first person to say that. Darwin, thank you, Darwin. But it's
Well,
true. I
yeah,
mean, we grow.
but also the two in the shadow side can be quite difficult, right?
I would imagine.
If someone's not in their higher polarity, if they're off balance of the two, it can be very
It's also
emotional, unstable.
it's very vulnerable. Yeah,
Hmm.
very vulnerable and unstable. That too needs a one right next to
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it.
Definitely.
Definitely.
So do you foresee anything, I guess, going into maybe a bit of a prediction thing, any highlights that you feel might be,
Well,
I know it is a year and a lot can happen and it is pretty broad, but is there a theme for 2023 that you've,
yeah, it's science,
yeah,
science and
okay,
technology. That's
okay.
that, and I'm not really sure that's that great a thing because we have made huge improvements in technology and not that much when it comes to wisdom.
Mm,
So
okay.
and people don't really people. I mean, we don't really realize what is actually going on. We we think of the Big Bang 14 billion years ago, if that's an explosive event, right? But if you look at it, if you make and I actually did once, make a schematic, and you cut it up in million, in every, make every dot a million years. You have a sheet full of dots, 14 billion years, all these dots, and somewhere 4 billion years ago, life came onto this planet. Okay, things started happening. Some single cell amoeba was flopping around, and things kept growing from there. But it's only 300 years ago that the Industrial Revolution started. It's only, basically 60 years ago or 100 years ago, 105 or 110 years ago, that the Wright brothers flew a plane, for the first time. Computers, 50 years. Phones, the way we look at them now, 25 years, 30
Yeah,
years.
and this year is AI.
This is an explosion.
Yeah,
This is not an evolution that
right.
gradually moves forward. What is happening with technology, the human race and technology, is an explosion,
Hmm.
not not a gradual growth. I
Hmm.
mean, I used to think when I was a kid, I'd look at somebody who was maybe like 80 years old and I think, oh, wow, that person was alive when a car still had to be cranked up, with the crank in the front of it. Now I'm, close to 100 years old, and uh, I can go back and know, the time when there were no computers, no, for the phone,
Mm.
dial the phone,
I do remember that time, by the way. Just
right.
this much, but I do. Yeah, absolutely. We
In
didn't have cell phones when I was a
1969,
teenager.
yeah, in 1969, I worked for Philips Computer Research for about 9 months, and the computer was the size of a building, and they use
Mhm.
punch cards. And
Yeah.
girls would roll these cards with punch cards into the computer, and that's how they do it.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not that old, pretty old, but I'm not that old. So how fast that computer, the little cell phone that I got right here, that holds like 5,000 times the power of that computer.
Mhm.
So that's explosive. But this year specifically, we're going to have some scientific breakthroughs that are that will put the year 2023 on the map.
Mm.
So and I'm thinking fusion. Just in December of 2022, that the first time that they actually made fusion happen with less energy spending than they created.
Mm.
So kind of the first um, perpetual motion machine in a way. The first time that energy was created, more energy was created than energy was spent. And there are other. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to. The thing with numerology, and I think with most predictive science, is that um, it's not like you read the newspaper a year from now. It's not like you get detailed information. It's like, I wish that was the case. Wouldn't that be great? If I could look at a newspaper from 2024.
Yeah, it's the
Oh my God.
energy. It's so a little bit open for interpretation.
You I can tell when a person, when a person's chart shows that 2023 is going to be emotional upheaval, especially around August, blah blah blah. I can, that's the kind of thing you can see. Can I tell it's because they're going to, maybe break up a marriage, or is it going to be something else? I can't. I don't know about other people, but I can't. I can predict that you're going to go through an emotional turmoil that's going to be devastating, and that you will get out of it, past it by whatever, September, or that I can see.
Mhm.
But I can't see specifically what's causing it. So with global forecasts, it's kind of the same thing. You, as a numerologist, as anybody who's doing prediction, you kind of a detective. It's like being a detective. You have limited bits of information, and you put them together. And you say, oh, what does that tell me?
And
Oh,
actually,
they're
that's good though. You don't want to predict all details because then what's the point of us navigating our life and growing and evolving and understanding all of these different aspects that we have to face and that for creation, for change, and this is with tarot. I'm very, very cautious of that because I don't want to get into predictions and the details of our life. It's up for us to interpret it and to feel it and
right.
to go in. And so it's
Leave
not
room
such a
for
bad thing.
surprise. Leave room
Pardon?
for surprise. You have to
Yeah,
leave
of
room for
course.
surprise.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, sure, I love being able to guide either myself or another person using this kind of system. But uh, the bottom line is that it's all about free will.
Mhm.
All about free will. You're in full control.
Yeah.
You're in total control. But regardless of what anybody says, or what you might tell yourself, you're in full control.
Mhm.
You guide your own ship.
Yeah.
So that to me is, I mean, all of creation is like that.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, this whole creation, it's like it's just being given. Everything is being given, given. Nothing is taken. Nothing. We give. It's given, and sometimes we drop it. You know, I mean, I remember, I grew up in a non-religious family, knock on wood. And, but I remember when I was like 10 or 12 or whatever, I asked my dad, do you believe in God? And my dad grew up Catholic. And he said, being a grouchy old Dutch guy, he said, oh, if God exists and he let Hitler roam this planet for that
Mhm.
long and do all that, I don't want to have anything to do with it.
Mhm.
And at the time, that made sense to me because I was 12 years old. But then, I realized God is like the sun. This creation is kind of like the sun. It shines on everybody, regardless. It's not judging. We all get our energy from the sun. We all get our energy from our creator, regardless. And we make the decision, and we make the choices of what we do with it.
Yeah, exactly. And you can change some of the frequencies that you have as well in your numerology if you don't, really want to, or if you want to even work through some of the shadow aspects or the challenging aspects, or I don't really like that, I want to fine tune it. You can work through some of these as well. Yeah. All right. Do you want to go through your chart that you had? Do you want to show your chart? You showed it earlier. Do you want to quickly walk through that and just?
That's one of the. So that was my first computer program actually. I developed this chart in 1982. So as a numerologist, like most numerologists, you just use a yellow pad. You make your calculation.
That's what I would do.
Right. And you end up with 3, 4, 5 pages of numbers, and it's just not a good way to, because then you have your meeting with your client, and then you have to flow. Okay, let's see, what was his personal year again? It didn't work for me. So I designed a chart that basically showed every number in your chart, in your personality chart, as well as in your cycles, in one easy to oversee picture, And then because I like colors, I color coordinated, just like, you might do with bookkeeping, all the green is this, red is that.
And so I'm very familiar with this, by the way. I have used it, and I really enjoy it. Yeah.
Good.
And what would you say is your favorite aspect of this whole chart or the output results? What is your favorite? What would you go to the most for? I know it all has its own place and its purpose, but what would be your go-to?
Okay, so basically you go to the life path number first. That's the double circle right there. It's red on this chart. I'm sorry, for me it's in mirror. It's a mirror picture, so you're seeing the actual. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, so it would be on the opposite.
Yeah.
Okay. I know. I was like, I don't know if I can say.
And then of course, and then you got the core name numbers next to the full name there, the blue circle, the heart desire, the expression, the personality. To me, the 5 core numbers make 90% of a person. Okay. All the other parts are detail.
And you mentioned that the heart's desire is actually more valuable, holds more information, or you feel it's more important for someone's.
A lot of people relate to their heart's desire more than their life path. But I mean, that varies, and it also kind of depends on numbers. But the heart desire, I think, also called the soul urge, is probably the most. I mean, it's underestimated, I think. If you line up the numbers in the order of what most people consider their importance, it'd be life path, expression, and then heart desire, personality. To me, it would be life path, heart desire, kind of like next to each other, right there. So that's one of the reasons I created the proportional chart.
I like that.
It's a different chart from this. It shows which numbers are dominating in your chart. And that's where I was able to give the heart desire number relatively high percentage. So, and people, they love it. They relate to it. I very rarely have somebody who doesn't connect to that.
And I'll leave a link to the proportional chart here as well, because it's really, really important to know where you're lacking in your numbers or what's more dominant. So if you have, as Hans was saying, a very strong 1 presence, and there was an imbalance of maybe a softer side, or maybe more of, yeah, something of it, maybe a two energy, well, just for simplicity purposes or something. If there was such a strong imbalance, then you would have to just put a little bit more effort within yourself, or just through observation and awareness, to work on more empathy, and more of that emotional intelligence, or diplomatic side of things. So it's a really, really great chart to use, because it'll show the imbalances and your strengths, and
Right.
your areas that you can work on to increase that frequency.
Yeah. So there's no such thing as a perfect chart.
Mhm.
That doesn't exist. But the thing that, as a numerologist, I think is the most important in the chart is that there is a balance.
Mhm.
You don't want an extreme on this side or that side. You want a
Mhm.
balance.
Yeah.
I remember this client that I had, and I actually use, obviously I changed the name and all that, but as one of the examples of a chart that is completely unbalanced. And this person, the full name at birth, and it was a long name, it was like 24 letters in the name, only 3, 4, and 5 were the only numbers represented in the name.
Okay.
And
Wow.
I was still like a relatively budding numerologist at the time. So I was kind of, I said, oh, that's not good. I knew it wasn't good. And so anyway, I met with her and all that, and we had the reading. And this was a person who was very successful as an artist, just really uh, up there. And but her personal life was like, you know, it was horrible. I mean, accident prone, just everything that you could possibly. And that, to me, was reflected in that chart. And that was one of those times when you feel like the fact that you recognize something that they might have never thought of
Mhm.
before, that this is just kind of this is kind of who you are, who you came into this world as, but you can change it, you can work on these things, that it was helpful. I mean, uh, uh, it's all about the benefit. In the end, it's all about the benefit for the client. If a person gets a numerology reading and doesn't benefit from it, then it's been a waste of time and a waste of
Okay. Well, we're sort of wrapping this up now. I'm sure we can talk for an extra hour. There's so much information, wealth of information that you have. And I mean, I'm just so fascinated by it. But for time's sake, I think we'll slowly move our way to closing the session, or interview. But um, let's talk about where you are now. So you've gone through this incredible journey through the numerology, self-discovery. It sounds like you're moving towards spiritual enlightenment and, excuse me, awakening in some kind of way, or really wanting to, yes or no, or practice, or
That's a
even,
big word.
I know it is. It's always a work. We're always fine tuning it, and we're always working towards it. But it seems like you've gone through this not only the numerology journey, but your own spiritual path in a sense. And I bought the What is Life book here, and I was really inspired by your story that you put in the end, and I'd like to read it. And then
Sure.
we can we can close, and I'll read it here. It's very short. But I haven't read the entire book. It's very, very short book, but I skipped all the way to the end to read your story.
All right.
Before-
Well, I'm gonna have to give you some homework then.
I just may have actually just gone to the best part. Maybe we'll see. But I'll read it here, and it's beautiful. So it's titled My Story. So this is from Hans, and it says, I'll keep it short. 47 years ago, following a rather amazing series of random events, I entered a room where I had been told I would receive a kind of initiation. I was skeptical, to say the least, but also desperate. I was not disappointed. With the gentleness of a child's hand and the patience of a monk, I was guided within, to a place where I could feel life itself rising, then slowly coming down, only to rise again in a perfect fluid motion, as if lifted by the waves or the ocean's gentle waves. It was subtle yet powerful. I could feel it pull my breath, then let it go again and again. My lungs were bellows in the hands of life, and I knew nothing could withstand this. I could not deny this omnipotent presence inside me. It was life, the beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega, the source of all there was and ever will be. This and more I realized instantly. Then I needed a few decades to understand what I had realized. But I knew this was home and this was me, my essence, my true self. For me, this was my reason for being. So I'm actually going to keep going. Okay, when I left the room, a good 2 hours later, I was in a state of sheer bliss. I didn't understand what had happened, certainly couldn't have put it into words. My mouth split my face from one ear to the other. My heart was bursting, my chest too small to hold the immense joy, and I knew without a shadow of a doubt my life would never be the same. In the blink of an eye, I had become conscious of my being. Almost 5 decades have gone by, and I still have difficulty accepting what I did not expect, but hoped and searched for had materialized. Every day since, I take an hour or so to go within, to visit the place where I belong, to meditate without meditating. I go inside to touch life, and when I do, I know life within is only reality. Everything else is temporary, an illusion. I can't imagine life. I can touch it and feel it, but not imagine it. Imagine that. So this goes all the way back to where you started your story of that life-changing moment in time that you experienced, and you've kept your practice ever since. Is there anything you want to add to that? It was beautiful.
Yeah, I've been really fortunate to have had this experience, um, because what you're looking for, it's just the simplest thing. It's the simplest thing. It's so simple that you walk past it every time you take a breath. You walk past it. You don't recognize it. You don't see it. But everything, it's inside, and it's just like one step beyond your breath. It's what makes you breathe, and that's life. That is life. When you pass away and you're laying on that bed, you still weigh the same. Everything's there. You're still there. You're just not breathing because you're dead. And you're dead because life left your body. And the hardest thing for us to understand is that the life that is inside of you is a reality. It's not a concept. It's not an idea. It's not a dream. It's a reality. It's something you can touch. If you go inside, and if you are lucky and you are, whatever, it's possible, you can touch that. You can feel that. You can touch that and know it's real. And when that happens, everything else falls away. Everything else falls away. It's all makes sense. It's all real. So after that, I mean, to tell you the truth, everything I've ever done, I've been a ceramic artist, I'm a numerologist, I'm a techie, I used to be a furniture maker, I used to be in construction, I used to be a bartender, done all these things. It's nothing but window dressing. Nothing but window dressing. Going
Experiences.
inside and feeling myself, feeling what is inside of me. That's all this life's all about.
Mhm.
So
Very
that's all
nice.
I'm saying. Yeah,
Very nice.
been
Thank you
very
so
fortunate.
much. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your stories. And again, if anyone is interested in your work, I'll leave links to your books, to the World Numerology website as well. And is there
Thank
anything
you.
else that you'd like to include before we log off?
Nah,
No? You
I just
good?
want to say people are wonderful, and I want them to have everything they can have.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Hans. It was
Thank you,
really
Sarah.
wonderful to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.